Merkel Media.
And I start having all of these different types of experiences, including possibly a jump room experience. And it appears to be an art gallery. But I also know I'm there to learn how to time travel. But when I look closer, they're paintings, they're almost stills of something that's actually happening in the moment. And so I jumped into 3 different paintings and then came back. And then I went into another painting and another painting.
Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by merkmerch.com. We have a new t-shirt design, the Tactical Alien. Check it out, merkmerch.com. Get yourself fitted up with all the apparel that we have to offer, merkmerch.com. Also check out merkelfilms.com for all your on-streaming demand needs. We have it all right there, merkelfilms.com, 3 documentaries and much more to come very soon. Now today we have Fringe coming on the show, and Fringe has been on the show before talking about soul trapping. She is somebody who's been going through abductions, and she comes to tell what she's uncovered as she analyzes her situation. And today we talk a lot about jump rooms and how that whole thing works. So let's get to Fringe and all this crazy stuff right now. All right, today we have Fringe on the show. Once again, Fringe, welcome back.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to see you. Great to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you're here. And listen, last time you and I sat down to talk, I wasn't sure what I was getting. I just remember you had reached out about doing a space on your X account. And I was like, how about you come on my show too? Because all I saw in your bio was the things that you mentioned. And I was like, that's all I knew about you. And, and I'll tell you what, it did not disappoint. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed hearing from you. So I definitely wanted to bring you back on. And you have so much to share. It's like, we're definitely not going to be covering it all on today's show, but it's something that I definitely want to look to have you back on in the future as well. So thank you very much for hopping on here. Before we jump into things though, let people know where they can find you and what you're all about.
Well, actually, I think it's right there underneath my face. It's fringe.com on X Twitter. That's my only social media. Right. I communicate with people who are also going through the same things that I'm going through. Actually, I want to start out, Tony, by thanking your audience. Your audience is phenomenal. The podcast episode aired and I started getting messages from your audience. Some of it was through the YouTube chat, but a lot of it was people reached out and got me on my website. I actually, unfortunately, had to shut down my contact form on my website because I could not keep up with the phenomenal response from your audience. And it was all, some of it was, other people are going through these things. And this is why I talk about it, because people feel like they're alone, like they're the only one this is happening to, which is absolutely untrue. But your audience was reaching out to help me. They just wanted to let me know that they gave me all kinds of different Bible verses, different suggestions on deliverance and contacting this person and that person. And it was just phenomenal. Some of what we talked about on the last episode was my spiritual crisis that I went through when I realized that the so-called aliens, which I don't think they're aliens at all, were able to transfer my soul out of my body. I went through a complete spiritual crisis. And so what your audience did was reach out with all kinds of resources and information and Bible verses, etc. And I just want to say thank you so much. It was very kind and I really appreciate it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It's good to hear. It's good to hear. I bring people on and you never know what the reception is going to be from the audience side of things, but the way I operate the show is literally, if I enjoyed talking to the person, it becomes an episode for the world to hear. So, as far as the audience reception goes, once my decision's made to release an episode, that's all. It's no longer part of the equation for me. So, I'm glad to hear that they were reaching out and created such a problem for you. You had to turn off your contact section on your website. So that's great. So you and I were kind of game planning a little bit here before we hit record. Last time you were on the show, we kind of introduced you to the audience, and you said last time on the show, it was over 200 instances in a very short period of time. And then you even mentioned to me before we started recording that we really didn't cover any of your experiences last time you were on the show, which I found incredibly hard to believe because we had such a long conversation last time you were here. And I do want to cover some of the things that you had mentioned just before we hopped on, but I do need to jump in on this topic too. And there's some things you can't cover, and that's fine. But whatever you can cover, I'd like to hear from you on, because this concept of jump rooms, my Lord, that sounds interesting. Like, what the heck is a jump room, and how can I find one?
Oh gosh, I wish I knew. I mean, supposedly there's one in Arizona, but I just got the lowdown that they actually move around, these jump rooms. Who knew? And so part of my experiences, just to back up just a little bit, a couple of years ago, it's actually lifelong experiences, but a couple of years ago, I started becoming very conscious and aware during a lot of my experiences. And I start having all of these different types of experiences, including possibly a jump room experience, but I had yet to come across any of the research or literature or even the lore. I wasn't watching YouTube channels on jump rooms. I wasn't aware of any of this information. I just knew what was happening to me. So it was kind of like in a little bubble of my own experiences and my own information without a lot of outside influence at all. And so imagine my surprise when one of my experiences actually matches up with people who were talking about jump rooms. And so one of my own personal experiences is it was my perception. And remember, I'm working off my perception, and our perception can actually be hijacked and manipulated. And these entities that I'm dealing with are quite deceptive and manipulative. So I always like to put that out there. So I am in a scenario, and it's my perception that I'm in a rounded type of a room, which usually indicates likely a ship. And I'm in a gallery. And I think I spoke briefly about this on the last episode. And it appears to be an art gallery. But I also know I'm there to learn how to time travel or to jump time. And so within this art gallery are what appears to me to be paintings. But when I look closer, they're paintings, they're almost stills of something that's actually happening in the moment. And so I'm looking at the painting and I'm thinking, what in the world, what is this? And then I'm actually taught, and I'm not going to be able to really walk through the teaching of that experience because in this environment, there's just a lot of knowing. So I know that I'm meant to jump into this painting and I'm going to end up on the other side. But when I end up on the other side of that painting, I'm actually in the environment of the depiction that's in that painting. And then I have to jump back. And I remember, and I'd have to check my journal. I always like to throw that caveat out there because a lot of times I'll look at my journal and see even a lot more detail than I'm remembering just off the top of my head. And I think I did it 3 times. And so I jumped into 3 different paintings and then came back. And then I went into another painting and another painting. And I was actually, without having any exposure to apparently the lore, is that President Obama has used a jump room. I mean, who knew? I'd never knew this. And so a couple of years ago, I was going through my own personal and private experiences. And then I think it was 2003. Yeah, it was just over a year ago. I kind of came into this community, and you guys, you have the cryptid type community. Well, I got into this UFO community where I started finding other people similar things were happening to. And I start hearing about jump rooms and time traveling. And so it was really interesting to me. I was in a space maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, and I heard someone talking about paintings and jump rooms. And I just locked onto it immediately because I thought, wait a minute, this is exactly what happened to me.
Hey guys, real quick, if you have a story you want to share with me, go ahead and shoot me an email at contact@theconfessionalspodcast.com. If you want more shows on a weekly basis, just go to theconfessionalspodcast.com/join, become a member, or just hit the join button right here on YouTube and you become a member on YouTube. It's the same content, just 2 different locations for your convenience. Now let's get back to the show.
And someone actually sent me the paintings that they were familiar with that were in a certain jump room that this person was referring to. And they were not the paintings. They were not the same paintings that I saw. They did not look familiar to me whatsoever. But it was really interesting for me just to put my own experience, like here I am jumping through paintings. And a year and a half, 2 years later, I'm hearing someone else discuss it in a space on Twitter. So that was really interesting for me. Separate from that, and this doesn't really have to do with the jump room, but my husband is an experiencer as well. He was taught, and I received a download on time actually being parallel. So time is much more like a book. So if you have a book in your hand, the entire story is right there in your hand. And if you can flip to the beginning, you can flip to the end, but it's all right there in one. And it's running parallel. You're flipping the pages parallel. It's not a forward and back linear type thing. And so it was also really interesting to me that my husband received, I think he got 2 lessons on time traveling, and he was jumping parallel. And he was standing in one type of a scene, and he jumped parallel ahead into the future. And he was actually checking out the results of some choices that had been made, and then jumping back and telling the people in the scene, no, we don't want to do it that way. We need to do it this way instead. Jumping forward again to check how that came out, and then jumping back to continue on that path. And again, it was a parallel move. So I'm not an expert on this whatsoever, but I think time is, not what we think it is. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got on the jump rooms.
Well, it's fascinating. And so you're saying your husband being an experiencer, he's experienced the jump rooms as well.
So he definitely did not characterize it as a jump room. So he perceived it more like he was getting a lesson or an experience on how it worked. So he didn't, and I wish he was here. Someday I'm going to get him to jump in. I thought he was close to, but
don't let him go anywhere until he comes here, though. I want to have him on the show first.
No, it'll be here. Oh no, it'll be here. You are the only reason that I have now done about 15 or 20 podcasts now. You are the only reason.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, it's just a tidbit of his experience, and his experiences are like mine. They're not as plentiful, but it's just a glimpse of this other reality, this unseen realm. These creatures they're all around us. I think it was Tucker Carlson who said, we are being acted upon at all times. And people, I do call myself an abductee because this is happening against my will. The things that these creatures are doing is against my will. People call themselves experiencers in my community, the UFO Twitter community. But I think we're all experiencers. We are all experiencers of this unseen realm, this phenomenon that's happening all around us at all times. We are being acted upon at all times. It's very much like, you're younger than I am, Tony, but there was a cartoon when I was young, and I think it was a rooster cartoon. And in the cartoon, there was an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other shoulder. And I look at life that way now. And I think it's the same for all of us. I think we have the unseen realm, and I think we are influenced on both sides to either choose the light or the darkness. And so people will say, well, I'm an experiencer. Fringe is an experiencer. My husband's an experiencer. We are all experiencers. It's just a matter of awareness and becoming aware of this unseen realm and the influence that they can have on us. So I don't think he had any jump rooms, but that's how he was taught to time travel.
That's wild. That's absolutely wild. No, I agree about that whole thing where we're all experiencers. And to be honest with you, it's funny that you and I were talking earlier, and you were talking about, and part of your story is writing down what you remember and in your diary. And before we got connected today, I was talking to was talking to somebody, and this idea came in my head that you should probably start writing down your dreams when you do remember them. And then as soon as that thought came in my head, it left, because I was like, nope, I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready for it. And it was my wife. It was my wife, because my wife always remembers her dreams. And recently she told me she's starting to not remember them as much as she used to. And it was yesterday. That's what it was. Because then I said to her, well, you should probably start journaling it and writing it down. And then the thought came into my head, you should probably do the same thing. And I was like, no, I'm not there. I'm not there, man. I might actually stop talking to people like Fringe if I start remembering my dreams.
You might.
Because I mean, you said that you even going through your journal and stuff can be a little bit traumatic at times when you start, throwing those memories back in your face at one time. Now, these jump rooms, would you describe them as maybe portals of some kind? I mean, it sounds like it's some kind of portal, whether it's the room, the painting, or within the painting, there's a portal. I mean,
you have such a love for portals.
I'm just saying, like, I think portals are such a generic, easy way to describe the entrance from one world to another, right? It's like I talk about portals, right, a lot, but it's really just a doorway. It's the doorway that things go through, and I feel like what you described is interesting, because I think you said the room that these paintings are in is often like round, right?
Well, my room was round. And so I can't speak to other jump rooms because I don't have info on that. But what I did understand was that other jump rooms actually had paintings in them, which is an interesting coincidence, if you want to call it. But I think this is how it came up on the last episode because of the portal thing. So you're right. What is a portal? It's a doorway. And all this, is it a doorway to, it could be a doorway to another time. It could be a doorway into, between the astral or the spiritual realm and the physical realm. Our own military industrial complex has the technology to open up a portal in your bedroom or basically anywhere. So yeah, it's a thing. And these are, topics that sound ludicrous and they sound like science fiction, but and here's the thing, it's technology. It's just technology. The stuff that we talk about sounds very woo. It sounds like magic. It's just technology. And that's one thing that I came to understand throughout my journey and the number of experiences I had. They came back to back to back. And it took me a while, sometimes I say it was an embarrassingly long time, to realize that they were actually using technology to access me, and that most of what they do is technology. Things we think of as spiritual, or, something paranormal happened to me, or something supernatural just happened to me. It's just a mastery of technology and physics that they understand and we don't understand. And if you think about it, if these creatures or the creators of these creatures were actually created for the spiritual realm, they were masters of the spiritual realm, of course they're going to understand physics and this type of technology that we just don't understand yet. Although, I want to draw a line there as well, because I think we have a lot of Black programs and maybe even some private corporations not involved in Black programs. And they do have this technology, at least something that's approaching the technology of the beings who actually thrive in this other realm that we're not even aware of.
So with what you're talking about, I guess we could probably move into, I'm trying to decide where I want to go with this, but we could probably move into MyLabs. For people that maybe aren't even sure what MyLabs are, could you give them maybe 1,000-foot overview before we kind of go into your experiences with them?
Sure. So MyLabs is short for military abduction. And it's actually an unfortunate word because MyLabs, when it shortened from military abduction, it kind of makes people think that, their son who just joined the military last week or their father who served very honorably might be involved in something nefarious, because MyLabs definitely have a nefarious side to them. So MyLabs really should be changed. And all it really means is covert human involvement with abductees. Generally, abductees have been taken by an alien, for lack of a better term, and then the military-industrial complex or covert humans will actually re-abduct an alien abductee and interrogate the abductee to find out what information the abductee has received, what technology they might have gotten their eyes on, what information might have just been downloaded into our heads. So that's how your classic MyLab kind of started out being labeled as a MyLab, because it was literally our military-industrial complex re-abducting alien abductees. Now, MyLabs can also be used for other things. There are people in satanic ritual abuse situations. There are people in just straight up MK Ultra situations. Although frequently, if you speak to someone in MK Ultra, you will find out that they are also an alien abductee. That's not their primary, I'll say identity for lack of a better term. Their primary actual function is an MK Ultra alter or MK Ultra asset. And so the MyLab can span a lot of different areas of the things that we talk about today. But in the UFO community, MyLab does mean an abductee being re-abducted by the military-industrial complex to gain information and intelligence from the abductee. Now, it kind of goes down some rabbit holes because we actually have a lot, again, of this MK Ultra programming that gets put into abductees. And in my case, I am actually used as, I think I heard maybe, was it Nathan Reynolds you had on your show? I think Nathan Reynolds was phenomenal. As Nathan Reynolds was speaking, I could identify with so much of what he was discussing. Because what's happening is our military-industrial complex, again, for lack of a better term, because a lot of this is private corporations and probably billionaires looking for immortality, they are using American citizens, and they're probably doing this all around the world, for their own purposes. They're using us for intelligence gathering against the aliens. I have been sent on an incredible number of what I label as missions of spying, smuggling. I have had many missions of terminating targets that I was sent after. And so this is a whole other crazy rabbit hole that is tied into alien abduction phenomenon, but it's also tied into, again, your satanic ritual abuse, your MK Ultra, people like Nathan Reynolds, who actually experience a whole other life. Like, I have no memories whatsoever of any satanic ritual abuse, yet I'm having the same type of experiences that Nathan Reynolds is having and other people who talk a lot about MK Ultra. And so what happened to me is I was just coming to even an acceptance of what was happening to me. And it took me a while to understand there was more than one thing going on. Like, I would be in one environment with some different creatures, and the next thing I know, I'm on these very strange missions and odd things are happening. And it took me a while to understand these are potentially two different things that are happening. I end up coming into the UFO Twitter community and being connected with people who are MyLab's abductees. Now, these MyLab's abductees that I am familiar with, they remember, a lot of them remember how they got into their programs. And your typical scenario is a child is identified as being of high intelligence, above average intelligence as a child. They probably have a parent in the military or in the intelligence community, and they are probably in the GATE program. And so this is kind of just a profile of kids who end up in MyLabs. Next thing they know, they are being used and they are being subjected to MK Ultra type programming, and they're getting alters created and then alters called forward to be used for our military industrial complex. Again, I do think there are other factions involved. I think we have private corporations and probably, billionaires actually using kits like this, but it's definitely a thing. People remember I was in GATE, and then I was recruited into Project Looking Glass. This is not me, by the way. I was recruited into Project Looking Glass, and then I was recruited into Project Stargate. And these are the missions I did for the military. People in military uniform. I'm in touch with a gal. Actually, she would be phenomenal for your show. We used to do spaces together. She has names of people who are very well known, names of people who are coming forward to push for disclosure as being people who were heading these projects. So it's a very interesting sidebar. It's not really a sidebar, I guess, because the things really go hand in hand. I think the statistic is 60% of alien abductees are also MyLab abductees. For myself, I actually had to come to Jesus moment, and it was actually devastating for me. It's one thing to come to grips with these creatures that we call aliens, being able to snatch us out of our environment and do whatever they want to do to us, right? They're doing medical experiments. They seem to be creating hybrids. They're doing all kinds of nonsense. It's a whole other thing to realize that you're also being used by human beings. And for me, the betrayal was devastating. So for me, when I got into the UFO community, I slowly started making contacts and coming across people and understanding that there was something very different going on with some of my experiences. And I had a couple of different red flags that just didn't make sense to me. One of them was that there's a faction of these creatures, and they refer to me by a number. And that number is the number 18. So when I first came to the UFO community, I was in a lot of what we call their UFO Twitter spaces. And it's just a town hall where it's like an audio conference call. You get into spaces, everybody's talking, everybody's telling their stories. I start asking people, has any abductee been called by a number? And I'm just getting complete silence. Nobody else is being called by a number during their abductions. So I know that this is something unusual. I know that I've never had an alien call me by a number. There's no name. They don't even call me by a name. Everything is just known. Everything is just knowledge being transferred into the mind. There's no speech. There's no words. Everything is just known. So I know that there's something off and that there's something wrong. Slowly over time, I come across someone who finally tells me, hey, I am aware of someone else being called by a number. Now, this woman's name is Penny Shephard. Have you ever heard of Penny Shephard?
No.
She's going to be an MK Ultra. So someone like Nathan Reynolds will have heard of Penny Shephard. So Penny Shephard is an MK Ultra survivor. And I think right away, oh, okay, awesome. Somebody else is being called by a number. Who is this person? I look up this person and I realize she's 100% MK Ultra survivor. And in the meanwhile, I am being told by other people I'm meeting, hey, you're really showing some signs of some base MK Ultra programming. And I'm kind of going, okay, that's fine. But I have no awareness of ever being in GATE. I have no awareness of ever being recruited to a program. I was not in Project Looking Glass or Project Stargate. I'm not fitting that typical mold of the other people I have heard speak about MyLabs. So I'm still kind of just pushing it to the side. I don't know what this is, but I'm not going to characterize it as that yet. So I come across Penny Shephard, and I'm going to have to try to be accessing my own memory here. Actually, before I got to Penny Shephard, I came across a woman by the name of Elisa. And Elisa was on Journey to Truth podcast. And the second I turned on this video of Elisa, my entire body started vibrating. And my vision actually went white. And I just thought, what in the world is going on here? I actually had to stop the video. I actually came into a bunch of different tech issues with even playing the video, but I had to stop the video and just, gather myself. Because anytime my body is being vibrated, a lot of times that's a precursor to an abduction. And so I'm stopping and I'm going, what is going on? But I'm determined to watch this video. So I watched the video, and this gal, Elisa, who is also an MK Ultra survivor, starts discussing this process by which our military industrial complex, and by the way, her claim is that she doesn't even think they can do this without the entities. So this is technology that has come from the entities. I think she said that she believes it's impossible for them to do it without the entities. The entities have the ability to transfer our soul out of REM sleep and into another body. And so the military industrial complex is doing this side by side with entities. They're transferring our soul or our consciousness out of our body, and they're putting it into other bodies. Now, this is something that even your average everyday audience member, your audience members, will probably have a really hard time with, because it just sounds absolutely ludicrous. Well, imagine the hard time I had with it myself. I'm having experience after experience after experience, and I'm trying to just stop and say, okay, what is really going on here? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? What is actually happening? And I had come to my own conclusion that they were transferring my consciousness and my astral body out of my body and putting it into other bodies. Sometimes it seemed like a clone body of myself, but very frequently I was in someone else's body, which I know sounds absolutely insane. And I know a lot of your guests probably see those types of things, right? So I listened to Elisa discuss what's happening to me. And I think, oh my gosh, this is happening to other people. And so I start down this road. And in the meanwhile, I'm asking, does anybody else get called by a number? And so now I have an awareness that this is really starting to sound like MK Ultra, but I have no background for it whatsoever. No reason to think that I'm involved in this at all. So I find Penny Shephard. I get onto Penny Shephard's website, and the first thing I see is that Penny Shephard is called by the number 11. Now, Penny Shephard claims to be the number 11 in Montauk, okay? So in the meanwhile, I am, during my experiences, seeing creatures who look like the Stranger Things monster. So I have the Stranger Things monster. And by the way, I had never seen the Stranger Things program. I had never been exposed to it whatsoever. And I was scrolling through Twitter one day, and this happens to me a lot, actually. I was scrolling through Twitter, and I had been trying to explain to people what these creatures look like. And I come across a picture of the Stranger Things monster, and it just hit me. And I went, oh my gosh, this is it. This is exactly, their skin is like this reddish, pinkish, weird, and it's reptilian skin. And so I'm telling it, people, no, the reptilians I'm seeing, they have red skin, reddish, pinkish skin. They're not green. Like, I'm not seeing the green reptilians. I'm sorry. I'm not going to, conform my story to things that aren't true. I'm seeing red reptilians. So I come across Stranger Things, and I just get hit in the gut, and I think, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, there's some connection here. So I go to Penny Shephard's story, and the first thing I see is that she's called by number 11. Now, before I saw she was called number 11, my husband had said to me, wait a minute, 18, you were born on the 18th of a certain month. And the first thing I thought was, that's ridiculous. How many people could you call by the number of the day of their birth? You would run out in 30 to 31 numbers, right? That's stupid. It's kind of what I was thinking. Although I entertained him and I went, okay, which is really dumb because my husband has a lot of really amazing insights. And so here I am on Penny Shephard's page. I hope this isn't getting boring. I'm not a great storyteller.
No, please just keep going. Do not say that again.
I have realized I'm not a great storyteller. I'm not. I watched my podcast. I go, what was I thinking?
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Okay. So number 11, because I'm taking like 4 hours to tell a very short story. Okay. So I go to her website. I see that she's number 11 and my body is reacting because the next piece of information I get is that she was also born on the 11th day of the month. And I just think, what the hell is happening right now? So this is now my first piece of information that I'm going, wait a minute. I'm reading the story of my life. And it's kind of like listening to Nathan Reynolds. Do not make no misunderstanding here. I did not live his life. I'm saying the concepts that he's talking about, just the concepts and their abilities and these things living underground, these creatures that he's coming across. This is exactly what's happening to me. And so I am now almost numb because I now find this woman named Penny Shephard who is called number 11. She was the number 11 in Montauk, and she is an MK Ultra survivor. So I'm going, okay. So of course I need to reach out to Penny Shephard. And so I write to her. She responds to me. I'm going to say one thing, and I'm going to say it as gently and nicely, but as clearly as I can. I know going into this contact with Penny that even if Penny believes that she is away from the program and no longer an asset, and even though she is believing that she is pulled away from this program and disconnected from this program, I absolutely cannot trust that she's not still working for her handler. And so I know going into it, I actually go and buy a burner phone because look, I mean, this age of technology, anyone can find out who we are in 5.5 seconds. Now, I already know I'm on someone's list because I'm getting snatched out of my body at night and going on these very strange missions for someone. So I'm knowing she probably is still being handled. She's probably still being used as an asset to gather information. And Penny will tell you very likely that that's not true, that she's gotten out of the program, that she's done a lot of healing, that she's integrated her altars, etc. But I know going in, it's foolish to think that she's not still an asset. So I get a burner phone. I call Penny. I think we were on the phone for maybe a couple of hours. Penny starts saying things to me like, do you have a gap in your teeth? I'm writing these things down because I need to try to remember. Do you have a gap in your teeth? And I go, what? And I've done this before. You can see I don't have any gaps in my teeth. Well, little does Penny know that up until about the age of 10, I did have a gap in my teeth. And a dentist, my favorite people in the world, actually fixed it for me. And so Penny, I cannot see any circumstances under which Penny would know that I have a gap in my teeth. I mean, back in that day, we didn't have any internet. What is her source of information? Where would she get this from? How would she be able to, because I'm always looking at her. I'm looking at her like she's just a gypsy, right? And she's, looked me up online and she's gotten some background information that she's going to regurgitate to me. And I'm going to believe that this is new information. Hopefully that makes sense. So I realize there's really no possible way Penny Shephard could know that I have a gap in my teeth. Then she asks me, do you have any of these family names? And she named off 5 family names. And one of those family names is my grandfather's last name, my mom's last name. I'm not going to give the name. I'll give you the name on the side. I don't think I've ever put the name out. Anyway, so now my blood is running cold, right? Because I do have this family name. Penny Shephard goes on to tell me that this family name and this gap in the teeth, and I hope I'm getting this right, I'm going off my memory right now, goes back to Mengele. You've heard of Mengele? I think Mengele was involved in the Nazi death camps, if I'm not mistaken. Mm. And so she starts telling me that basically by virtue of my bloodline, I am subject to this MK Ultra programming. And so even though I don't have any memories of being in gate, all the typical memories of the people who get into MK Ultra and who get into these MyLabs programs, I don't have that. But now I have Penny Shephard telling me, you have this family name. If you have a gap in your teeth, you're related to this person. And I look this person up, and he's like death camp Nazi, high level death camp Nazi.
You're talking about Mengele?
Mengele. Yeah. Mengele.
Yeah. Joseph Mengele.
Yeah, that's him. Did you look him up? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So like nickname Angel of Death.
Well, that's him, the Angel of Death. So apparently have the bloodline of the Angel of Death. And somehow this gives them some type of authority or some type of ownership over me, because I somehow have ended up in some type of really weird freaking program that you'll hear a lot of people call it super soldier program. Again, Nathan Reynolds spoke to it. Penny Shephard has spoken to it. And I've actually heard it a lot. I've heard it a lot throughout the community. Nobody likes those words, super soldier. As soon as you say that, you lose credibility. Because again, we're talking about UFOs, which are already a so-called conspiracy theory. Then we're talking about aliens. Then we get down to abductions. Then we get down to the part where they're actually able to take us out of our bodies and not even remove the physical body. And now we're talking about super soldiers. So this is so far down the conspiracy rabbit hole. There's no credibility there whatsoever in just your regular average UFO mind. And so now, after my conversation, and I'm sure there's other stuff, I have notes here somewhere. I can't ever keep track of my stuff.
You're doing great.
I get it all together, and then I sit down and go, what? Okay, so now I'm thinking, okay, at least I have some framework. I asked Penny, tell me about what this looks like. And she starts telling me the story of my life, how I'm being taken out of my body and being put into other bodies, and I'm going on these missions. And so she gives me so much information that, again, she's probably still being used as an asset. By the way, I'm not disparaging Penny as a person whatsoever. It's just logic tells me in some way she's still being used as an asset. Things that she could absolutely not have known, especially this gap in the teeth, as I was just a child when this was happening, this family name, the relationship to the Angel of Death. So I leave this conversation and I'm devastated. So I've had two crisis moments in the last 2 or 3 years. One of them was a spiritual crisis. When I realized that the aliens could move my very essence and my soul and my consciousness from my body, I had a spiritual crisis because I just thought, this is not allowed. Where did my Bible tell me that the aliens can take me out of my body and have any authority whatsoever over me or over the afterlife or over, anything to do with my very essence, my soul, what makes me me? And now I understand that the humans are doing it as well. And so I'm devastated. I feel very betrayed. I had a really rough couple of weeks. I was like, man, the humans are doing this to me. And I want to say, this is not two different things. So this is not the so-called aliens and the so-called covert humans operating separately. This is a combined project. It is becoming very, very difficult for abductees to even separate now an alien abduction from a covert human abduction, because there is so much overlap. And these entities are working with humans side by side. We have a new whistleblower out in the community. He would also be phenomenal for your show, but he's not doing any visual representations right now because he's going to be in the new James Fox documentary. So I'll send you his information. Phenomenal. And so we have insiders coming out now. Now, I'm not as educated on a lot of the history and the lore of ufology. But we now have a very brand new whistleblower saying, I was in the program. These entities are working side by side with humans, period. There's no question. And so now, am I only taking his word? No, I'm going by my own experiences. I'm going what I've seen with my own eyes, despite the fact that they do have control over our perception. And I'm going with now the abduction research going back decades is showing this very same thing. So I'm just devastated. I cannot believe human beings are using American citizens. And I think especially in the United States, we have this sense of entitlement, of freedom, of sovereignty over ourselves, over our bodies, over our spirit and soul. And so it was devastating for me. That's my walk down the MyLabs. I think I've probably been going for quite some time. I don't know if hopefully you wrote down a couple questions or you put a couple into your head, because I've been talking for like 3 hours with no break. And I would say I hate to just go on a monologue, but yet here I am. And again, I don't even know where my notes are. I'm sure there's other stuff I wrote down from Penny, and it was just, it was insane.
Fringe, you never have to apologize for talking. All right. Like I tell all my guests this, the audience is here to hear you talk, first of all, and you especially feel free to talk the entire time. I don't care. Like, don't ever apologize. No. So this is mind blowing for so many different things. I was writing down many different names that you were mentioning. This whistleblower. Let me ask you about this whistleblower. We'll work backwards here.
Okay.
The whistleblower. How do you know? Have you talked to him?
Oh, I'm telling you, Twitter is the best place you could possibly be for any of this type of topic. I mean, ufology, your community, first of all, there's so much overlap, right? When you came into the space that we did for UFO Twitter Week, the overlap on what you were saying about cryptids is insane. It
Really?
Sounds like the same exact process as an abduction from a so-called alien. Because by the way, these creatures, I mean, they're in our underground bases. They're side by side. Your Sasquatch is side by side with the Grace. It's all the same thing. And this is what people, we're separated and compartmentalized, and people don't understand. This is all the same thing. The satanic ritual abuse community, the targeted individual community, the cryptid community, the UFO community. Anyway, to answer your question, UFO Twitter, UFO X, we have whistleblowers coming out of the woodwork, jumping into spaces and vomiting information as much as they can give, because there's NDAs and there's classified information, and they're being very respectful of that. But this gentleman is God's gift to ufology right now.
Has he been
incredible?
Has there been you or whoever been successful attempts in vetting him at all, as far as him being? Because I mean, if he's a whistleblower, it means that I'm assuming. And maybe I'm wrong, but does he work within the government?
So he was in what is affectionately referred to as the program. And so the program is like a big umbrella, and I'm not going to be good at this part whatsoever, but the program is a big umbrella for a bunch of small umbrellas of programs such as UFO crash retrievals and recovery of bodies, anything from that to our own humans working side by side in labs with these entities. So there are different factions of the program, and a lot of these factions are actually compartmentalized away from each other. So the program is just a big umbrella, and he worked for the program. And he was, and this is, I don't want to mess up his story. He's an intelligence analyst, basically. And his job is to collect intelligence on the people who are working in the program. So, did that answer your question? So yes, he's testified. I don't want to blow his story. He's testified before Congress. He is a certifiable whistleblower, a real one. And he did produce his DD-214. He has been vetted by people in the intelligence community. And yes, can you trust those people as far as you can throw them? Sometimes I think you can. You got to trust at least some stuff that they're saying. It's the 80-20 rule for me. Even when they're feeding us counterintelligence, you have to base counterintelligence on intelligence. Otherwise, it doesn't get swallowed, hook, line, and sinker. So he has been vetted. He has testified. He's in James Fox's new documentary. The man seems as legit as the day is long, and he's coming forward with an incredible story. He would be fantastic for your show. Matter of fact, you could probably hit him up and record as long as you don't release it until after the documentary is out, because he's definitely got some agreements, understandably so.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I kind of been coming to the same conclusion as well. And maybe I'm just gullible. Maybe I'm just this guy that, I don't know. But I mean, I recently, I didn't really know who this was when I met him. And so I don't know if I describe somebody that you know of and it's okay to say their name, then you can say it. But I recently met somebody who was one of the key movers inside the government on getting disclosure going. And I told him some of the things that was coming out back in 2017, I was like calling BS on. I was like, what is this? Like, I was thinking, I told him, I said, I felt like it was just a giant psyop going on. And, but after talking with him and hearing him speak and stuff, I was like, I think I understand now, and though you can't trust everybody on everything, some of the methodology used and the verbiage used, it made sense after hearing the explanation as to why things went down the way they did. So I totally agree with you on that aspect of things. Okay, so you speak with, her name was, I wrote a couple of names. This was Penny, right? Penny was the 11, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was just like crazy to hear, because when you mentioned about being called 18, the first thing I thought of was, I was like, that's kind of like being called 11 from Stranger Things. And then you bring up Penny, and I was like, holy crap. So you're saying the creatures that you saw, have you ever watched Stranger Things?
Never.
Okay. You need to. It's my favorite show.
I don't want to watch Stranger Things.
No, here's the thing. Here's the thing. And you would know this more than anybody, but I tell people all the time, Stranger Things is real. It's based off of real events. Like they'll openly say that. But what I say is the intricate details of that show are real. And I've come to understand that through many different venues. You have just confirmed parts of it, like just reaffirmed it, So I had no idea about her, and you talked to her on the phone. Was it just one time that you talked to her?
It was one time. So I connected with her on Twitter. Again, the Twitter's the place to be, Tony. I'm telling you. I connected with her on Twitter. She gave me her phone number, and I went and bought a burner phone so I could contact her. I think we sent a couple of text messages. As a matter of fact, I might have sent her a text message once that said, hey, I think I ran a scenario by her, and she goes, oh, yeah, that's exactly what they do. Welcome to my world. And I just went, oh, man. So I definitely have a couple of connections to this whole Montauk project. I've never watched Stranger Things, but from what people have told me, some of my own personal experiences are depicted in Stranger Things. I mean, being in this dentist chair, I've been spun, and to get my astral body to go out of body, I have experienced this extreme spinning sensation in order to come out of body. So there's just been a few things that I think. Well, before we started recording, I told you yesterday I went through my journal and I ended up in tears. So I compartmentalize a lot of this stuff. People think when I speak that there's no emotion or, it's not affected me. Absolutely untrue. It's just compartmentalized. This is stuff that is so extremely traumatic that it's impossible to just deal with every single day. I can't just wake up every day and think the aliens can come snatch me out of my bed at any moment. And by the way, so can the military-industrial complex. And by the way, they're working side by side, which is mind-blowing to most people. I start reading through my journal, and there are times people ask me a question. There was one time somebody asked me, well, have the aliens ever told you that they're eating people? And I responded and I said, no, they haven't told me that. I was reading through my journal and I have it very specifically written down. I was told the aliens are eating people.
Wow.
And so I'll go through my journal and I've like compartmentalized it and put it away with just, maybe a dozen incidents that really stand out in my mind. Yesterday, I was reading through my journal, and this is another thing that has come up. I have been inside a vat of liquid. Well, I didn't remember that until I went back and I looked through my journal. I went, oh my gosh, what was I doing in a vat of liquid? Well, that's throughout the abduction research. Little did I know. And so I know now. And so I just compartmentalize everything. And it's really not until I start trying to remember and talking and going through my journal that I realize the amount, I don't want to curse on your show, the amount of chicanery that has been happening to me for my entire life, and specifically since I started documenting it, is insane. I could make, 10 or 12 movies out of it. And so we spoke earlier before we started recording, be really careful about writing down your dreams, because writing down your dreams can open up this connection between the right and left brain, and you suddenly have more access to your own subconscious, and you really might not want to know what's lurking there.
Let me ask
you
a personal.
How I started on that.
No, you're fine. We're going to keep it going though, because I want to ask you something that I'm going to continue my thought from earlier right now with you to see if you have any thoughts on it from just your understandings. I do not remember my childhood very much at all, and I'm not talking like, I'm talking like I really don't remember much at all. The only things I remember are the traumatic experiences I had, and when I was thinking about writing down my dreams, and that, like, it wasn't a voice, but it was just a sense like, no, don't do that. I think part of that feeling that I had was the fear of remembering my childhood. And I don't know why that is. I have ideas. Let me put it this way. I got some really strong ideas as to why I might be having some huge blocks. But do you think that if I were to write down my dreams, there is that chance of maybe not even remembering? I don't think I don't know. Like you said earlier, it's happening all around us. We're all experiencers. I understand that, but are we all being abducted? I don't know. I don't think I've been abducted, but let's just put that aside, okay? Because I don't want to go down that wormhole. Do you think that if I were to start, writing down my dreams, do you think it could trigger memories that have nothing to do with abductions, but just childhood memories that have been put away? Do you think that's the case?
It absolutely can. And so just the act of writing down your dreams, it somehow links up your two brains. So we function with the right and the left brain, and each side of the brain has, different jobs or tasks, if you will. And just the act of writing down my dreams made me stop. And I'm a dream rememberer. I remember my dreams. When I wake up in the morning, I remembered what I dreamed about the night before, but it doesn't stay very long, right? It just kind of flies away and you go about your day. And my dreams in the past, I always looked at my dreams as what the science told me that they were, which is just your subconscious mind filtering through the day's activities, filing things away, different things happening in the dream world, but that they were not real whatsoever. And it wasn't until I started writing down my dreams that I started developing an awareness while I was sleeping and dreaming. So I'd always been a lucid dreamer, but there was no continuity. So once the dream is over and the lucidity is finished, that was it. So the science shows us that just the act of writing down the dream actually connects the right and left brain and can trigger memories having nothing to do with your dreams, nothing to do with abductions. Another thing that can do it, and there's a few different things, but I don't recommend them. But another thing you can do is engaging in any creative activity. So if you like to play the guitar or if you like to paint, anything like that can open up that connection with your subconscious mind, and you might start remembering. Another thing you can do is just start writing, just start journaling, even if it's not your dreams. You can journal what you did throughout the day and, the important things that happened. Just the act of writing. By the way, with a pen and paper, using a computer isn't as good. A pen and paper can open up that connection. And you're very much reminding me of people who write to me and they say, hey, this happened when I was a kid. I saw a UFO when I was here and there. And I frequently say, make sure you want to know, because this is not something that's easy to deal with. This is not something, a lot of people can't live with it. There's a lot of suicide in our community among abductees. These people can't speak to their own spouses about what's happening to them. They can't tell anybody in their church. They can't tell a friend. They can't tell a boss. And so be very careful about finding out this information. Now, for me, I want the information. To me, the truth is better than any lie. And so I want to know the truth. I want to know what's happening, but that's for me. So you make an excellent point. Do you want to know? My answer is yes. That doesn't mean that it's your answer. And you do have to be willing to live with whatever you find. Now, what I don't recommend is hypnosis or any regressive hypnosis, if you can avoid it. I would not engage in any hemi-sync. I would avoid your average meditation. Because that can lead you down actually a whole other, rabbit hole of access for these entities, which you don't want. You want to remember your own memories that are already there that you experienced.
And when it comes to these entities and this concept that, we talked about it before. I think I even called the episode Soul Trappers or something like that. There's a lot of things to understand here. So one, let's go with the practical side of things. If our own government, if you want to say that this is all crazy talk, then you're probably somebody who puts faith in what the government tells you. And so if the government is, and if you find yourself in both camps saying this is crazy, but I don't trust the government, I don't know what to tell you. But welcome to your new home. But if you're one of these people that pay attention to what the government's saying, the people that are releasing this information, right now there's a lot of talk about these the metallic spheres that are being released, and you just moved your eyes, so I don't know.
I'm surprised I didn't roll my eyes.
Do you? Well, all right. Let me hear what you had to say about that. Let me hear what you had to say.
Okay, are we talking about this idea that we have a grid of metallic spheres protecting the planet, or where are you going? Because I don't want to preemptively go there.
So that's
not where you're going.
That's news to me. Well, listen, there's so many different rabbit holes I could go down with you, and we have like 15, 20 minutes before I have to go leave to pick up my son. So okay. I'm going to refrain from going down your grid talk. But from what I understand, wasn't it Jeremy Corbell who had brought to out that, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, that these metallic spheres are actually drones, unmanned craft coming from somewhere else. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, I don't know if you're remembering that correctly, but I think that's definitely on the table, right? It has to be. I don't think all of these craft are manned. I think a lot of them, could be drones for sure. Even the manned craft, they're being manned by these biological robot entities that we call the Greys. So to me, all of these entities that we're dealing with, we call them aliens. They're not aliens at all. Because part of my process was understanding that they weren't aliens, because I actually started out believing they were. That's a whole other story. I can't remember what we covered on the other podcast, but it could absolutely be unmanned drones. I think most of what we are seeing in our skies is probably our tech. People think, I just saw a UFO. No, you probably didn't. Now, does that mean that there are no UFOs? Absolutely not. There's UFOs all over the place. But they have superior technology, and they do make mistakes. but they largely want to remain unseen unless it serves a purpose for them. So could we be coming to a disclosure period where we start seeing actual real UFOs, which, by the way, there's not going to be any way for anybody to know or to tell whether they're seeing our tech or actual real UFOs. There's some prediction out there right now that in October, we're going to have some mass sightings. Here's the problem. We will never know unless if that's us or them. Because again, there's so much overlap in the technology and we are working together side by side. It's not us, it's not us humans and them. It's both. It's together. It's all the same thing. Now, the aliens have their own agenda. We have our own agenda. I truly believe that some of what these MyLabs are is truly for national security. I believe there is a core group of people who know what this is, and they know the threat that this is, and they want humanity to survive. And
are you referring to the Collins Elite?
I mean, you could look at the Collins Elite as maybe being part of it back in the day, but the Collins Elite factioned itself off. You had parts of the Collins Elite summoning demons in order to make deals with the devil, literally. And so I don't want to give them a name, but I think there's a good core group of humans who have good motives. They want to see the human race survive. But by the way, the human race does not include me and you. The human race includes continuity of government, right? And important people. It doesn't include me and you. But I do believe that there's a faction of our military, national security, military industrial complex actually trying to do the right thing, which is defend ourselves against these creatures.
So all right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're also in bed with them. There's also a huge faction that's actually in bed with them.
I kind of want to run with this because this is where I'm going with this. To try to and maybe if people have been riding with the show for the last couple of years and stuff, this will help you a little bit. But let's just take the mechanical side that I was referencing earlier, the metallic sphere, how it comes here from somewhere else, but it is physical. It's technology. It's unmanned. It's being created somewhere else. But we also know, like the artwork behind me, the stories of Lazar and the idea of reverse engineering technology that was brought here from somewhere else. And then there's also the aspect of people that I've had on the show who talk about, being in the astral realm with an astral projection session or something. And when they're trying to come back to their body, there's an entity there trying to prevent them from entering their body. And so like you take that concept of something on the other side wanting your soul, your spirit, whatever that astral projection self that you are is trying to prevent that part of you to enter your physical body again. And so you have those accounts, and then you have the physical technology that's being brought here from somewhere else. I don't think it's that far of a stretch then to say that the physical technology that's being created somewhere else can't be created here at times, and therefore the people that are here that are working with entities from there are going to use the technology or use those entities to use their technology to do what they need to get done. So like you're talking about the MyLabs, like, and this is even the soul sucking. Like, what if we can't reverse engineer what they can only create on the other side? So they need to work with these entities to accomplish some of the goals that we can't do in this side of whatever this is, this reality, this realm. That is probably like a lot of word vomit that didn't clarify anything for anybody. So I apologize, but that's just like the weird web of my mind. Because I hear these people's experiences, not just from like what you're talking about, but like I said about the astral projection, and there are these crossovers. You mentioned about the Sasquatch being right next to the Greys. I mean, I heard about that years ago, and since then, I think it's kind of come out that he's a hoaxer or a liar. I'm not sure. If it's not true, I apologize. But Emery Smith, have you ever heard of him?
No,
so
I haven't.
He came out, I think at least 7-8 years ago. And he was saying that he was part of this I I don't want to say 20 and back type programming, but like he was part of like the Corey Good group and stuff. And I think it came out that Corey Good was lying. I don't know, but Emery Smith said that he would work on biological things. And he said a lot of times it was just like a piece of skin of something, and he'd be working on it. He never actually was around the entire body, but he did say that one of the beings that he did see in its body in entirety, he said looked like Chewbacca. And my thought was, that sounds like Sasquatch, you know? And so like the idea of it was just like, okay, so I started kind of thinking about those things, you know, back then. And again, I don't know how trustworthy this guy is anymore. I don't know. I literally don't know. But it's just, these things do overlap and crossover a lot. And shoot, so unless do you have something else you want to get off your chest before I bring up something else?
No, you
Okay.
Go.
All
Go.
right. Well, no, but with you, like, because I have something else I want to bring up, and there's other things I'd like to talk to you about, but it's just not going to happen today. We'll definitely do it again. But before we started recording, and I don't know how much you can get into this with our limited time here, but your husband. Now, you said that you went through, since the last time you and I talked, you went through a deliverance. Your husband was there with you. He saw what happened. He saw things. So if you could just walk us into this experience, if you can, about, you know, what took you to the route of going through deliverance. I mean, obviously it sounds like, you know, once you start going down the route of these aliens aren't what they're telling us they are, it kind of leads you to certain things. So the floor is yours. Tell us about this whole situation.
Okay, I actually have notes on this because, especially for his own story, I wasn't in the room. I don't know if I'll start it. I don't know if we're going to get into it. I don't know if we'll get all the way through it. Please excuse the papers here because I have to pull up his story, you know. So just very briefly, I started out believing that I was dealing with space aliens. I'm in this space alien environment. I've got a lot of medical exams happening, a lot of pregnancy stuff happening, a lot of stuff that took me a very long time to wrap my mind around. Like I can't even believe this is happening to me. And it's a very long story that someday I will walk through the entirety of my story, but I think I'm going to need a very long time. So I wrap myself around that, my mind around that. At this point, I think I'm dealing with space aliens. I'm actually walked down this road by the phenomenon itself. These creatures are acting upon us at all times. Just because I'm taken out of my bed at night does not mean that nothing is happening during the day and that the influence isn't there. I'm being walked down this road of a new age, that these aliens are here to bring us to 5D, that the hybrids they're creating is humans 2.0. I mean, all the stuff. I hear the same stuff every day. I was in that same camp. This is where I was being walked. They're here to upgrade us. You know, the hybrids are for our own good, et cetera, down the whole new age path. And it takes me until, and I say it was an embarrassingly long time it took me to understand that this was all a pack of lies, for lack of a better term. Once I start realizing that this is all lies and that they're transferring my soul, I'm now in their environment. It's very telepathic. They try to hide, you know, what they're doing, but they can't. I am now having an understanding that they're trying to reverse engineer my soul. They are trying to make a soul. They're transferring me out of my body. They're transferring me into other bodies. They're transferring me into what I have perceived as an AI or a computer system or a television screen. So I could go into a complete spiritual crisis. It's too long of a story for the time we have, but very short. I realize I am literally in a battle for my life and for my soul. And I start taking steps to kind of back out of this. They've walked me down this road of being in the new age. This whole idea that the serpent was actually the good guy trying to bring knowledge to humanity. You know, it was an entire thing. And hopefully we get into it someday. So I end up realizing I'm literally in a battle for my soul. I'm kicked up the food chain from aliens to demonic entities. These demons are working on the same side as the aliens. In fact, I think the aliens are probably just avatars for these non-corporeal beings, and they frequently use them as avatars. So I get kicked up the food chain to the demons. I'm literally in a battle for my soul, my very life. In fact, one of my last interactions with these Montauk creatures was them telling me this is how it was always going to end. And I knew in that moment they planned on just eliminating me. So it starts me back on, I started out as a very hardcore Calvinist Christian. You might remember that from the last episode. I get walked into the New Age, being a player on their team. And I come to realize that it's all a bunch of lies. And now I'm realizing, wait a minute, how can this even fit in how does it even fit into Christianity that an alien can take my soul out of my body? I end up coming right back into Christianity. While I'm pushing back on the abductions and coming back to Christianity is when I encountered the greatest degree of actual punishment from these entities. So I realize I'm in a spiritual battle. I end up fighting for all of 2023 against this. I come back to Christianity, but I'm broken. My faith is destroyed. But I'm doing okay. So we're never going to get there, Tony. We're never going to get to Deliverance. My husband's going to be so upset.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You
okay,
know what we'll do?
I'll give you a preview.
No,
I'll give you a preview.
No, I don't even want to hear the preview.
Come on, 20 seconds.
All right, give me 20 seconds and then we're going to...
20 seconds. We go to Deliverance for me. My husband ends up dry heaving into a trash can while two demons come out of him. And we should just do a whole show on the Deliverance because that's not even my part of the story.
I'm saying, like, holy cow. All right, so here's the deal. I was going to try milking another 15 minutes with you just because I was like, if I get to his school a little late, they'll hold on to the kid.
No.
We're gonna bring this in for a landing. Gosh darn it. I you know what I want to do? I want to do another session with you, whether it's going to be another separate recording or maybe we'll do an overtime episode on the back end of this one. To be determined. We
haven't even gotten to the part where I was cut open on a table.
I know. I have it in my notes here. Listen, like there are some people, right? So like I remember looking back at the recording that I did with you initially, and I saw it was like 2.5 hours long. I was like, was it really that long of an episode? And now talking to you again, I was like, this is why, because she has so much to share. Like so much to share. You can't possibly cover it all in one. We just did an hour and 15 minutes. We did 2.5 hours last time. I said absolutely nothing. That's not true. That's not true. You did so much. You covered so much. So listen, you and I, once we're done with this recording, we're going to schedule another time to sit down and record again. And it will either be an overtime for this episode or it'll be a separate episode completely. We'll decide that later. But Fringe from X, thank you very much for joining me again. This was fantastic. Thank you, Tony. And again, I just want to thank your audience for being so supportive. Although I will point out there was one lady who said, I need some extra conditioner in my hair. She's holding on to it. So you might want to comment on this video and encourage her and say, I'm sorry, apologize. So Fringe, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Start looking at people like they don't matter. I'm waking up to the fact more than